What is happening, everyone? Today, we're about to break down the NFC South. We're going to take a look back and see how these teams did last year and what we expect them to do this year. So, before we move ahead, we'll look back and see how they finished up in the standings. Last year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won this division pretty, I don't want to say easily, but they were clearly the best team in the NFC South. They finished 10-7. Behind them was Atlanta, who was 8-9. Obviously, they had a quarterback change. They started off actually pretty hot last year, but then Kirk Cousins started struggling, and then they brought in Michael Penix, and things kind of fell apart for them halfway through the year before they kind of stayed about pretty average. Third was Carolina, who actually improved last year. Bryce Young got benched, then he came back, looked a little bit better, so they finished 5-12. And the New Orleans Saints, who had Derek Carr and a lot of excitement for that quarterback, struggled, had some injuries. Spencer Rattler came in for a few games. Ultimately, they did not have a great year. They finished 5-12 as well. They were last in the division. So when we look ahead to 2025, we're going to take a look and see what these teams did over the offseason. We'll start with Tampa Bay, who one of their biggest moves this offseason. And I will say this, for these teams, they didn't really have too much drastic change. Most of them, I think, because they weren't so great, were dependent on their draft picks. Obviously, Atlanta had a mid-round pick. Tampa was the winner of the division, but it's not like they had an incredible record at 10-7. So, they didn't have a top pick. And New Orleans and Carolina were towards the bottom of the standings last year, so they had pretty high draft picks that they're hoping can help them build towards the future. So, again, with Tampa, the biggest move, I would say one of the biggest moves was they re-signed Chris Godwin. Unfortunately, he got hurt. He's dealt with some injuries in his career, but he is a great receiver when he's healthy and playing. They re-signed him to a 3-year, $66 million deal. Seemed kind of high to me, considering his injury history, and he's not that young. But at the same time, he's reliable if he's healthy. And, obviously in the room with Mike Evans and their draft pick, who they brought in, rookie wide receiver Emeka Egbuka. I know who he is. I just can't say his name really well. But he's an Ohio State kid, pretty good receiver. And all reports from camp tend to be that he might be a great receiver. So he's been having an awesome camp. I think their hope is that he can at least be the number 2 receiver by the end of the season, in this being his rookie year. And then next year, obviously, with Mike Evans getting a little bit older and such, that then maybe Egbuka can become their number 1. But that's who they're banking on. They're banking on him being better. They have a new offensive coordinator, as Liam Cohen, who was their offensive coordinator, is now the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So now they have Josh Grizzard. That's their offensive coordinator. And so he's kind of moved up, homegrown. He was with Tampa last year under one of the offensive coaches. So the offense, I think, obviously he's going to bring in his own flavor, but it shouldn't be too different, considering they still have the same quarterback, most of the same guys. They also signed Hassan Reddick as a defensive end. He's a little bit older, but, a good piece to have. And other than that, they re-signed Teddy Bridgewater, who seemed like he was retired, started coaching some high school football, helped out the kids, but somehow got in trouble. I don't know how. I guess you got to follow the rules, but he was actually being a really, really good guy. And so he lost that job as a high school football coach. Now he's the backup quarterback for Baker Mayfield. So solid move. And they also re-signed Levante David, the linebacker that's been there for a while. He's older as well, though. So not much movement with Tampa. I really see them being about the same. I'm not sure how much credit or not credit I give to Liam Cohen as the offensive coordinator. I obviously didn't know too much about him other than, he was their OC last year and their offense was okay. It wasn't crazy. But I will say their running backs, they have a young running back. I'm blanking on his name. Let me look this up because he's good. He is really good. And I want to see Bucky Irving. That's what it was. He from Oregon. Bucky Irving last year kind of had a little breakout season. Let's see what stats he had. But, if he takes the next step, now you have a stud running back with Bucky Irving. Yeah, last year he eclipsed 1,000 yards. So he had 1,100 yards on 200 carries. He averaged 5.4 yards a carry. That's really good. So I think they're banking on maybe, the run game taking another step with him obviously getting more of the workload. And we'll see. I think Tampa will be solid this year. But they're also in a relatively weak division. So I think that helps mask some of their deficiencies. All right, Atlanta kind of kept it the same. They added Leonard Floyd, defensive end. They Divine Diablo, a linebacker as well, that came over there. They lost Grady Jarrett, who's a good centerpiece. He went to Chicago. He's a defensive tackle. He is older, so I don't mind them losing him that much, but still. And they drafted Javon Walker, a defensive end from Georgia, so staying right there in the same state of Georgia. And they do have a new defensive coordinator in Jeff Ulbrich. And obviously, other than that, the big question is, what is Michael Penix going to be? So, again, last year was a big quarterback draft. Obviously, you had so many guys go last year. You had Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels. You had Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy. Two of those guys didn't get much reps last year. Also, Drake May. So three of the guys, actually, I would say Drake May got the most play. But still, he didn't play a full rookie year. So I feel like for Drake May, Michael Penix Jr., and J.J. McCarthy, this is a year of just, can you run the offense? Can you lead the team? It's not really a statistical measurement type of season. It's, hey, do your job, essentially. Don't, make mistakes, control the offense. And we are hoping to build around you right now to kind of start elevating once you hit your prime, hopefully by next season. Or, they would hope it's now. But obviously, I think expectations need to be kind of more tamed with these three guys. And so with Michael Penix Jr., he only played a handful of games last year, and he looked pretty good. And then he had some rookie mistakes, which is to be expected. So I think for them, I think it's all about his development. They obviously want to have a QB1. Kirk Cousins was not the answer for them. He started off all right, struggled. He's older. He was injured, as we found out through the Netflix quarterback show. And so ultimately, can Michael Penix be the guy? That's really the biggest question for Atlanta. Raheem Morris, their head coach, I'm not too high on him. So we'll see how that works out for Atlanta. All right, Carolina, the best thing I think they did is they drafted Ted McMillan at number 8. And as I've talked about before, stud. He was one of our winners from preseason week 1. I think if he can be a wide receiver 1 and a legit guy and one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver from this draft class, that's great. They're going to be super, super happy with that result. They also, Travion Mooring, the safety they brought in as well. He was on the Raiders for a few years. Now he's over here with the Panthers. And they did lose Shaq Thompson. He's been a linebacker there for a long, long time, older. And they lost Jadeveon Clowney. He's been kind of a journeyman after, it not really working out too well for him from, being drafted pretty high and kind of having one good season and then so after that. But also big news for them is they re-signed their great cornerback, J.C. Horn. So they re-signed him. The Panthers have their head coach, Canellis, who came over from Tampa. And I like him. Last year they won 5 games. I think it was ballsy to bench Bryce Young. He was in the second year at that point. So you're thinking to yourself like, oh man, is this going to shatter his confidence? Hey, they benched him. I don't know what kind of conversations they had with him, but when he came back a better player. And I do think Carolina's on the right path. Adam Thielen's a reliable receiver in that wide receiver room. So I like what Carolina's doing, and obviously I think they're heading in the right direction. And last and probably least, again, is the New Orleans Saints. Unfortunate for them, they brought in Derek Carr thinking, all right, this will be a big change for us. He dealt with injuries. There was a whole lot of drama in the offseason. Ultimately, Derek Carr retires on them. Now, they already had Spencer Rattler last year, who they played in Carr's absence when he was injured, but they also drafted Tyler Show in the second round this year. So there's going to be a QB battle there. One of those two guys is probably going to be the starter. I don't think either of those guys is ready to be a starter in the NFL, so I don't see good things happening for them. They drafted Kelvin Banks. That's a good pick, in my opinion, an offensive tackle out of Texas. So you need those guys. You need boring. You need boring in your life. So I'm glad that they did that. But they lost some secondary guys. Paulson Adebo went to the Giants. Will Harris went to Washington, the safety. They brought in Will Clapp, who's a center/guard. So they are at least, trying to help these young guys by helping out the O-line group. But ultimately, I don't think that's going to make too much of a difference if these guys aren't ready. Chase Young, they re-signed, and they also brought in Justin Reed, who's a safety, older. I don't see it with the Saints. I think they're going to struggle. I think they have a chance of being the worst team in the league. Ultimately, it's all about the quarterback. It's all about the quarterback, and unless you have a great roster around them, which is still about the quarterback because you can't afford your quarterback to make mistakes so that the guys around him can carry the team and not be playing from behind, essentially. So Tough stretch there for New Orleans. The way I see this division playing out is I think Tampa is going to win again. I think they're going to be the division winners. I think they're going to be right around 10-7 again, but I'll give them an extra win. I think having Bucky Irving is a great thing for them. He was great running back last year. I think he can take the next step. Their offensive line is pretty good. Baker Mayfield has proven that he's not just a bust like people thought in the beginning. He is a competent quarterback. He's really solid in that 10-12 range, probably in the NFL. And I think he can carry this team. Their defense is not bad. And again, I think being in this division helps them. So I think Tampa will go 11-6 or 10-7, but I'll give them 11-6. They'll improve by a win, let's say. And then second, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say Carolina is going to jump Atlanta. I don't see it with Atlanta. They were 8-9 last year, and I don't necessarily think they got better. Like I said, it's all about Michael Penix Jr., but I don't know. I don't see it with Atlanta. I'm just going to be straight up. So I think Carolina's going to jump them. I think Carolina could be a very, very improved team. Again, they improved on a few wins last year. I think they could do it again. But I think those two are going to be right around the same. One of them I think will be 9-8, and the other will be 8-9 or something like that. And so I'm going to say Carolina improves this year and goes to 9-8, misses the playoffs still, but they're right there. They're either 9-8 or 8-9 or something like that. But I'll give Carolina 9-8. I'll give Atlanta 8-9. And I think the Saints are going to be the worst team in the NFL. I think they go either 2-15 or 3-14. And since I was kind to Tampa Bay, Carolina, and Atlanta, I'm going to be mean to New Orleans. And I think they're going to go 2-15. That's how bad I think they're going to be. I don't see them really winning many games with either of these quarterbacks. And again, they don't really have any playmakers outside of that, even on defense or anything like that. So, yeah, I don't see it. So Tampa Bay 11-6, Carolina 9-8, Atlanta 8-9, and New Orleans 2-15. Sorry, New Orleans.